Time, our most precious currency, is slipping through our fingers faster than ever before. In an age of endless notifications, relentless schedules, and constant noise, we have traded our peace for productivity and our focus for frenzy. Yet the truth remains, your calendar is not just a planner, it's a mirror of your priorities and a map of your destiny. Every appointment you make, every hour you spend, is a declaration of what truly matters to you. The tragedy is not that we have too little time, but that we allow others to steal it without resistance. Heaven has assigned you divine appointments, moments crafted by God for growth, revelation, and purpose. But if your days are filled with distractions, you'll miss the whispers of eternity. Protect your calendar like it's gold, because in God's economy, it is. Every moment is a piece of eternity entrusted to you, a resource to invest wisely, not squander carelessly. In this message, we'll uncover how to reclaim your time, guard your purpose, and walk with divine precision, so that when heaven looks at your calendar, it sees stewardship, not chaos, obedience, not overload. Time is the only resource that cannot be replenished. You can earn back lost money, rebuild broken opportunities, and even restore damaged relationships, but you cannot rewind a single moment. Once it's gone, it's sealed in eternity. That reality alone should cause us to tremble at the thought of wasting it. Every tick of the clock is a silent sermon reminding us that life is not infinite on this side of eternity. We live under the illusion that tomorrow will always come, yet each passing day is a withdrawal from the account of our earthly existence. Time is not a casual gift, it's a divine trust. God has given each of us a fixed measure, a personal allotment of days and hours to fulfill His purpose. How we use that time will determine the fruit we bear, the influence we leave, and the legacy we build. When Scripture tells us to redeem the time for the days are evil, it's not poetic advice. It's a command born from divine urgency. To redeem something means to buy it back, to reclaim it from loss. Time is constantly being stolen by distractions, temptations, and meaningless pursuits, and it's our responsibility to fight for it. Every day, there are forces competing for your attention, some subtle, others seductive, all designed to fragment your focus and drain your energy. The enemy does not need to destroy you if he can simply distract you. He doesn't need to chain your body when he can clutter your schedule. In doing so, he keeps you from what truly matters: communion with God, purposeful work, and the cultivation of eternal fruit. Consider this. Every morning you awaken to a divine deposit of 80,400 seconds. Each one holds potential, an opportunity to worship, to grow, to serve, to love, to listen, or to create. But those seconds cannot be stored, they can only be spent. The question is not whether you'll spend them, but how. Many squander their time as though it were infinite, filling their days with busyness masquerading as importance. But busyness is not the same as fruitfulness. One can move fast and go nowhere. One can fill a calendar and still miss a calling. The wise understand that time, like gold, must be invested intentionally and guarded fiercely. Think of a jeweler handling gold dust. He doesn't toss it carelessly or leave it exposed to the wind. He gathers it with precision, knowing that every grain matters. In the same way, the wise disciple treats time with reverence, recognizing that every moment has eternal weight. Those who walk with God understand that stewardship extends beyond money. It includes moments. You will one day give an account not only for what you owned, but for what you did with the hours you were given. Did you waste them on trivial pursuits, or did you invest them in the kingdom? Did you allow every interruption to detour you, or did you guard your focus like a watchman at the gate? Our culture glorifies the hustle and applauds overcommitment. We equate packed schedules with purpose, as though exhaustion is a badge of honor. But in God's design, rest is not laziness, it's obedience. Reflection is not waste, it's wisdom. The Sabbath principle still echoes through creation: to pause, to evaluate, and to realign your heart with divine timing. You were not created to sprint endlessly from one demand to another. You were made to walk in step with the Spirit, discerning what truly deserves your time. If time is a divine gift, then every distraction is a thief. How much of your day is stolen by the trivial? How often do you scroll through hours of emptiness while heaven waits for your attention? The value of time is revealed not in how much we have, but in how much we waste. Even moments of silence, when used to reflect on God's presence, carry eternal significance. But moments surrendered to meaninglessness dissolve into nothingness. The wise learn to live with the awareness of the clock's sacred rhythm. They measure their commitments carefully, speak their yes with conviction, and guard their no with courage. They don't let the urgent rob them of the important. They see time not as a container to fill, but as a canvas to paint with obedience and grace. To them, every day is an altar, every hour a sacrifice, and every minute a seed sown into eternity. So protect your time as though it were gold, because in heaven's eyes it is more precious. Every moment that passes is a piece of eternity placed in your hands. How you spend it determines what will echo beyond your lifetime. The question is not how much time you have left. It's how much purpose you will place within the time you've been given. The wise will number their days, not to calculate how short life is, but to ensure that every heartbeat, every sunrise, every conversation, every act of service, and every quiet prayer counts for something that will outlast the ticking of the clock. Your calendar is not just a collection of dates and appointments. It's a spiritual document that reveals what truly rules your heart. If someone were to look at your schedule, they would know what matters most to you without you ever saying a word. The things that fill your time reveal what you value, what you fear losing, and what you truly worship. We often speak of priorities as if they are determined by what we believe, but in reality, they are determined by how we spend our time. Your beliefs might declare that God comes first, but if your calendar never reflects time set apart for Him, then your actions betray your words. The truth of your devotion is written not in your declarations, but in your daily agenda. Many people claim they don't have time for prayer, study, reflection, or even rest. Yet the same people find hours for scrolling, entertainment, and empty conversations. The issue is not time, it's order. God has given every person the same 24 hours in a day, yet some produce fruit that impacts generations while others drift in cycles of distraction and regret. What makes the difference? Intention. Those who live with divine purpose don't stumble through their days reacting to every demand. They design their days around what truly matters. They don't allow their calendars to be dictated by the urgent. They align them with the eternal. When you place something on your calendar, you are not simply scheduling time. You are making a covenant with your priorities. Every yes you write down is a form of worship, a declaration of what you have chosen to serve. If you fill your schedule with trivial pursuits, you are offering your most valuable possession, your time, on the altar of distraction. But if you order your days around God's will, your calendar becomes a living testimony of your obedience. The enemy knows this, which is why he doesn't always attack with chaos or calamity. Sometimes he simply fills your days with things that look good but lead nowhere. He will use opportunities to crowd out divine appointments. He will whisper, "You're doing something important," while slowly pulling you away from what is truly eternal. The wise learn to examine their calendar the way they examine their conscience. They ask, "Does this reflect what God has called me to do? Does it align with my values, my purpose, my calling?" Too often, we drift into commitments that serve neither our spirit nor our mission. We say yes because we fear disappointing others, forgetting that every unwise yes steals time from the assignments God intended for us. Our calendars become cluttered not because we lack opportunities, but because we lack discernment. True spiritual maturity means being able to decline the good so you can preserve space for the God-ordained. Imagine your calendar as sacred territory, a garden entrusted to your care. If you don't protect it, weeds will grow. Meetings, obligations, and distractions will choke the life out of your time until there's no room left for peace or purpose. God does not bless chaos, He blesses order. When He created the world, He didn't begin with activity, He began with structure. He separated light from darkness, land from sea, day from night. Before creation flourished, time itself was ordered. The same principle applies to your life. Without structure guided by wisdom, your energy will scatter and your purpose will wither. But when your calendar is ordered under God's direction, everything else begins to align. This is why it's not enough to fill your schedule with good things. You must fill it with God things. Many of us mistake activity for productivity and busyness for impact. We chase every open door, forgetting that not every opportunity is an invitation from heaven. Some doors lead to distraction, others to depletion. The only way to discern the difference is through prayerful reflection. Before you commit your time to something, pause and ask, Lord, is this for me? A moment of prayer can prevent months of wasted time. Your calendar is a reflection of your spiritual life. A life filled with hurriedness and overcommitment is often a sign of a soul disconnected from its source. But a life marked by intentional time with God, margin for rest, and clarity of purpose reflects a heart that knows who it belongs to. Protect your calendar from the tyranny of the trivial. Make room for what nourishes your spirit. Let your days become a living rhythm of worship, service, and renewal. Because when your calendar reflects heaven's order, your life becomes heaven's instrument. Your time becomes a channel for God's purpose. And in that alignment, every day, no matter how ordinary, becomes extraordinary. Every moment becomes holy. When you guard your schedule as sacred, you are not just managing time, you are stewarding destiny. Busyness has become the new badge of honor. People boast about their packed schedules, their endless meetings, their lack of sleep, as though exhaustion were a symbol of importance. Yet beneath the surface of all that motion lies an uncomfortable truth. Activity does not equal accomplishment. Busyness is not fruitfulness. The world measures success by how much we do. God measures it by how much of what we do actually bears eternal fruit. The difference between movement and momentum is purpose. A hamster runs endlessly on its wheel and never advances an inch, but we applaud ourselves for doing the same with our time. The tragedy is that many of us are sprinting in circles, mistaking motion for meaning. The enemy knows this well. He doesn't always attack the believer with overt sin or obvious rebellion. Often, he works with subtler tools, distraction, clutter, and busyness. If he can keep you constantly occupied, he can keep you from being effective. If he can fill your days with trivial pursuits, he can silence your spirit long enough for divine opportunities to slip away. The devil's favorite strategy is not always destruction, it's diversion. He doesn't need to make you fall if he can make you hurry. He doesn't need to break your faith if he can bury it under a pile of deadlines, commitments, and noise. In a world obsessed with productivity, the enemy masquerades as opportunity. True fruitfulness begins where frantic activity ends. Jesus never rushed, though his mission was eternal and his time on earth short. He walked with divine precision. He was surrounded by crowds, but never distracted from his purpose. Every miracle, every conversation, every act of compassion flowed from alignment with the Father's will. When Mary and Martha hosted him, Martha busied herself with serving while Mary sat at his feet. Martha's work was not evil, it was necessary, but it wasn't eternal. Jesus said, "Mary has chosen the better part." That statement cuts deep into our culture of constant doing. It reveals that the better part is not always the busier part. Busyness often disguises itself as obedience, but without discernment, it becomes idolatry. We start to worship the schedule instead of the Savior, our plans instead of His presence. Many people say they serve God, yet they rarely stop long enough to listen to Him. We fill our days with ministry, business, family, and commitments, all good things, but neglect the quiet moments that cultivate fruitfulness. The vineyard of the soul cannot grow in chaos. It requires stillness, attention, and pruning. Just as a gardener trims excess branches so that the vine can bear more fruit, God calls us to cut away the unnecessary so that our lives can yield the essential. Fruitfulness is never the result of endless motion. It is the result of rootedness. A tree that produces much fruit is not one that moves constantly, but one that stays firmly planted. It draws from deep soil, nourished by quiet consistency. In the same way, those who bear spiritual fruit are those who dwell in God's presence daily, who abide rather than rush. They prioritize connection over activity, prayer over planning, worship over work. This doesn't mean doing less, it means doing what matters most. It means aligning every action with divine purpose so that even simple tasks carry eternal weight. Many believers live as though they are trying to impress God with how much they can do for Him, when in truth He desires that they walk with Him. The call of Christ is not hurry and achieve, but abide and bear fruit. That fruit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, cannot be manufactured by effort. It flows from intimacy. When you are connected to the vine, fruit comes naturally. When you are disconnected, no amount of striving will compensate. The most productive thing you can do for your destiny is to stay close to the one who gave it to you. So take an honest look at your life. Are you busy or are you fruitful? Do your activities bring you closer to God's purpose or do they keep you from it? Are you filling your schedule to feel valuable, or filling it with things of eternal value? The difference is subtle but profound. Busyness drains. Fruitfulness replenishes. Busyness leaves you tired and empty. Fruitfulness leaves you fulfilled and alive. Busyness fades with time. Fruitfulness endures beyond it. If you want to walk in true fruitfulness, slow down enough to hear the Spirit's direction. Silence the noise long enough to receive divine instruction. Not every opportunity is an assignment, and not every demand deserves your response. Learn to say no without guilt. Learn to rest without apology. Learn to listen before you move. God can do more with 1 hour of obedience than you can accomplish with a lifetime of busyness. When your actions are rooted in His timing, your life becomes a testimony of supernatural efficiency, less motion, more meaning. Busyness impresses men, but fruitfulness pleases God. The world may applaud your calendar, but heaven watches your obedience. The secret to a fulfilled life is not doing more, but doing what matters, what He's called you to do. Because in the end, it won't be your speed that counts, but your spiritual yield. And the fruit that lasts forever is grown not in the frenzy of doing, but in the peace of abiding. Divine appointments rarely appear on our schedules, yet they are the very moments heaven ordains to shift our lives, shape our purpose, and touch the lives of others. God works through time, but not always according to our plans. His calendar is eternal, His timing precise. Yet for many, those divine intersections go unnoticed because their days are filled with noise and haste. The Spirit of God does not shout over chaos, He whispers in stillness. If your life is cluttered with constant activity, you will miss the sacred interruptions that were designed to change your direction. Availability, not ability, is often what God seeks. The greatest encounters in Scripture happened not when people were striving, but when they were listening. Moses wasn't looking for a mission when he saw the burning bush. He was simply tending sheep in the quiet wilderness. David wasn't campaigning for a throne. He was watching over his father's flock when God sent Samuel to anoint him. Mary wasn't seeking greatness when the angel appeared. She was simply available. Heaven moves through the hearts that are open and the schedules that are surrendered. The problem today is that we have filled every gap, every moment, every pause. We've become addicted to motion, to doing, to producing, until silence feels uncomfortable. Yet it is in those unhurried moments that divine appointments appear. When we rush from one task to another, we live in survival mode, not spiritual awareness. We become so focused on efficiency that we lose sensitivity. But God's purposes are often hidden in the ordinary. A conversation you didn't plan, an interruption you didn't expect, an encounter you didn't schedule. These can all be divine setups. Heaven's agenda rarely fits neatly into your planner. It requires flexibility, humility, and discernment. That's why the spiritually mature learn to hold their schedules loosely. They leave margin for the unexpected, trusting that God might redirect their day for reasons far beyond their understanding. To be available for divine appointments, you must first surrender your calendar to the one who wrote your story before time began. We must stop treating interruptions as inconveniences and start recognizing them as invitations. Sometimes God halts your plans not to punish you, but to position you. The person you meet in a waiting room, the delay you didn't anticipate, the call you almost ignored, these can be holy moments. The difference lies in perspective. To a distracted heart, they are annoyances. To a discerning spirit, they are assignments. Divine appointments cannot be forced, but they can be missed. When you guard your time yet remain open to God's interruptions, you live in a rhythm of divine alignment, structured yet sensitive, ordered yet open. Jesus modeled this balance perfectly. He was intentional with his time, yet never inflexible. On his way to heal Jairus' daughter, he stopped for a woman who touched the hem of his garment. He paused for blind men crying out by the roadside, for children others tried to shoo away, for a Samaritan woman by a well. These were not accidents. They were divine appointments woven into his journey. Each one carried eternal significance. Jesus never saw interruptions. He saw opportunities for the kingdom to manifest. That perspective transforms how we live. When you understand that God moves through moments, not just plans, you begin to see the sacred in the seemingly small. To make yourself available for divine appointments, you must guard your heart from constant distraction. The enemy fills your time with noise to keep you from hearing the whisper of direction. He knows that if he can keep you busy, he can keep you blind. So learn the discipline of stillness. Make time each day to sit in silence, to listen, to let the Spirit reorder your day before the world does. Ask God each morning, "Whom do you want me to see today? What do you want me to say?" Such simple prayers prepare the soil for divine moments. Every divine appointment carries eternal weight. It may not seem extraordinary in the moment, a word of encouragement, a prayer for a stranger, a gesture of kindness, but in God's hands, those moments ripple into eternity. You may not see the full impact this side of heaven, but obedience in small moments opens the door for greater ones. Some of the greatest blessings come disguised as interruptions. The question is whether you are too hurried to notice. Availability requires intentionality. You cannot be available for God's will if your schedule is owned by everyone else. Protect your time, not to hoard it, but to make room for the Spirit to move. Build space for reflection, for rest, for unexpected ministry. Be willing to let God rearrange your plans without resentment. A surrendered schedule becomes a stage for divine encounters. When you learn to walk with sensitivity, you will find that heaven has been trying to meet with you all along, waiting for you to slow down enough to listen. When your days are ordered yet open, structured yet sensitive, you walk in divine rhythm. You cease striving for control and start partnering with providence. And in that posture of availability, you will discover that the most significant moments of your life are often the ones you never planned. Because divine appointments are not found, they are revealed in the stillness of a heart that is ready to say, "Here I am, Lord, use me." Boundaries are not barriers, they are safeguards for purpose. The world often confuses boundaries with selfishness, but in truth, they are acts of stewardship. When you protect your time, your energy, and your focus, you are not rejecting people. You are honoring the divine assignment placed within you. Every calling requires protection. Even Jesus withdrew from the crowds to pray, not because he didn't care for them, but because he knew that without solitude, his strength would be drained and his clarity clouded. He understood that to fulfill the Father's will, he had to guard his time with the Father. In the same way, if you don't protect your space, the noise of the world will consume it, and your spiritual clarity will fade beneath the weight of constant demand. We live in a culture that rewards overextension and praises exhaustion. People wear busyness like a badge, equating self-sacrifice with holiness. But there's a difference between serving from fullness and serving from emptiness. When you continually give without replenishing, you eventually run dry, and a dry vessel cannot pour. God calls us to serve, but he never asks us to neglect the very well from which we draw. Boundaries are not walls of isolation, they are fences of wisdom. They mark where your stewardship begins and where others' expectations end. Without them, you become vulnerable to manipulation, distraction, and burnout. Setting boundaries is not about saying no to people, it's about saying yes to the right things. Every time you agree to something, you are giving a piece of your time, your energy, and your focus, resources that are limited and sacred. To say yes without discernment is to spend what God has entrusted to you without purpose. Many people lose their peace not because they are doing evil things, but because they are doing too many good things that God never asked them to do. Discernment is the gatekeeper of your destiny. Without it, your calendar will be ruled by other people's priorities instead of God's. Boundaries also test your identity. If you constantly say yes out of guilt or fear, it means you are finding your worth in people's approval rather than God's purpose. People will always have opinions, needs, and expectations, but only God can define your assignment. Jesus disappointed people constantly. He left towns where people still needed healing. He refused demands from crowds. He prioritized the 12 over the thousands, yet he never wavered from his mission. His boundaries were anchored in obedience, not convenience. He didn't allow emotional pressure to override spiritual direction. True maturity is the ability to say no to what is popular in order to say yes to what is purposeful. Boundaries must also exist in your thought life. Not every idea deserves attention. Not every voice deserves space in your mind. The enemy often uses mental intrusion as a way to consume your peace and drain your faith. Guarding your inner world is just as important as guarding your schedule. Protect your focus as though it were a sacred treasure, because it is. Whatever captures your attention eventually shapes your destiny. That's why Scripture tells us to take every thought captive, to protect the sanctity of our inner space from being hijacked by fear, doubt, or distraction. When you live without boundaries, you invite chaos into every corner of your life. You begin to say yes to obligations that don't fit your calling, to conversations that drain your spirit, and to habits that erode your strength. Over time, that chaos becomes normal, and peace feels foreign. But when you reestablish order, when you define what belongs to you and what doesn't, you begin to live from rest instead of reaction. You become intentional with your time instead of impulsive with it. You stop trying to please everyone and start focusing on pleasing the one who called you. Setting boundaries doesn't mean shutting people out. It means showing up in your relationships from a place of health, not depletion. Love has limits because true love flows from strength, not exhaustion. You cannot pour living water from a polluted well. By protecting your time with God, you become a source of clarity for others. When you withdraw to pray, you return with power. When you rest, you return with revelation. Boundaries ensure that you are not just giving, but giving from overflow. Every God-given purpose requires seasons of retreat and renewal. Even fields must rest after harvest to remain fertile for the next planting. Your life is no different. There will be times when God calls you to pull back, to reset, to rebuild. That is not regression. It is preparation. The world may call it inactivity, but heaven calls it alignment. Protecting your time, your energy, and your spiritual focus is an act of worship. It declares that you trust God enough to pause, to listen, and to wait. So, learn to say no without guilt, to rest without shame, and to guard your calendar without apology. Your time is sacred, your purpose is divine, and your peace is priceless. Boundaries are not selfish. They are the fences that keep your garden fruitful. Because when your life is ordered, your energy focused, and your heart undistracted, you become a vessel fit for the Master's use, moving not from exhaustion, but from divine empowerment. Every yes you speak carries weight, because each one silently declares a no to something else. Time and energy are not infinite. They are sacred portions of your life that must be spent with wisdom. Many people say yes too quickly, out of obligation, fear, guilt, or the desire to please others, without realizing what they are trading away. Every time you agree to something, you are giving a piece of your life that can never be reclaimed. When you say yes to an unnecessary commitment, you say no to rest, to reflection, to family, to prayer, to the quiet moments where God whispers His direction. The art of discernment begins with recognizing that not every opportunity is an assignment, not every open door is divine, and not every request deserves your response. The world around you thrives on urgency. It shouts, say yes now or lose your chance. But heaven operates on peace. God never rushes His children into chaos. He calls them into alignment. The enemy, however, loves to exploit your good heart. He'll use your compassion to overextend you, your humility to silence your boundaries, and your kindness to trap you in commitments that drain your purpose. Many destinies have been delayed not by disobedience, but by distraction disguised as duty. The enemy doesn't need to make you rebel, he just needs to keep you too busy to listen. Jesus understood the power of a selective yes. He didn't attempt to meet every need or please every person. Though he could heal every disease, he only did what the Father told him to do. His life was marked by precision, not popularity. There were times when crowds begged him to stay, yet he walked away because his mission was elsewhere. That kind of clarity comes only from intimacy with the Father. When you spend time in God's presence, your yes becomes sacred. It's not impulsive, it's intentional. You begin to discern what aligns with heaven's purpose and what simply adds weight to your life without bearing fruit. Every yes has a cost. When you commit to something outside of God's will, you pay with peace. You pay with time that could have been invested in what truly matters. When you learn to weigh your decisions through prayer, you begin to value your yes as something precious. The mature believer doesn't say yes easily. They pause, they pray, they test, and then they commit. Because they understand that obedience is not about doing everything, it's about doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. Saying no is not rebellion, it's wisdom. Even Jesus withdrew from the demands of people to pray. Even He refused to be manipulated by urgency. You are not more spiritual because you say yes to everything. You are more effective when your yes carries divine authority. A yes rooted in pressure will drain you. A yes rooted in purpose will strengthen you. Learning to say no creates room for the assignments that actually matter. You cannot carry the full weight of God's calling if your hands are already full of distractions. Some people never experience breakthrough because they never make room for it. Their calendars are crowded, their hearts are divided, and their focus is scattered. Heaven is ready to pour out new blessings, but there's no space for them to land. When you say no to what is merely good, you create space for what is God. Not every door that opens is meant to be walked through. Sometimes the open door is a test of your focus. Can you stay committed to what you were already called to do, or will you chase something shiny and new because it looks promising? Discernment is knowing when to resist the impulse to pursue every opportunity that presents itself. God's best often requires patience, not pressure. Saying no can be a declaration of faith, faith that God will bring the right opportunity at the right time without you needing to strive for it. You must also learn to say no to your own impulses. Not every idea you have is meant to be pursued. Sometimes your spirit knows it's not the season, even when your ambition says it is. There is wisdom in restraint. The most powerful word a wise person can speak is not yes, but no. It's the word that guards your peace, protects your focus, and preserves your calling. When your yes becomes selective, your life becomes effective. Every yes that comes from alignment with God carries exponential fruit. It multiplies your influence, deepens your impact, and strengthens your joy. But a yes outside of His will brings confusion, fatigue, and frustration. You cannot serve two masters, and you cannot chase every calling. The power of focus is found in choosing carefully, so let your yes be rare and your no be clear. Don't let guilt manipulate you or fear control you. You are not called to please people. You are called to obey God. The more intentional you become with your commitments, the more peace you will carry. And when you stand before God, He won't ask how many things you said yes to. He'll ask if you were faithful to the one thing He called you to do. Guard your yes as you would guard a treasure, because in the economy of eternity, it's one of the most valuable gifts you can give. Eternity measures time differently than we do. What we see as fleeting minutes and passing hours, heaven sees as sacred opportunities woven into the tapestry of divine purpose. The human mind views time as linear, past, present, and future, but in God's eyes, time flows from eternity, not toward it. Every moment we live on earth is a fragment of forever, entrusted to us to steward wisely. When you begin to see your hours through the lens of eternity, everything changes. You stop wasting time on the trivial. You stop chasing things that fade. You begin to live with purpose, clarity, and reverence, knowing that every choice echoes beyond this life. Time becomes holy when it's aligned with heaven's perspective. We live as though time belongs to us, but in truth, it doesn't. It is borrowed. Every breath, every sunrise, every heartbeat is a gift on loan from the Creator. You are not the owner of your time. You are the manager of it. One day, each of us will stand before God and give an account for how we used what He gave us. Did we invest our days in what truly mattered, or did we waste them on distractions and empty pursuits? Did we live with eternity in mind, or did we live as though the temporal would last forever? The sobering truth is that eternity begins the moment this life ends, and what we do here determines how we will spend forever. When you carry that awareness, your priorities begin to shift. Eternity recalibrates what is valuable. Suddenly, forgiveness becomes more urgent than pride, kindness more important than recognition, service more fulfilling than ambition. You realize that wealth, status, and applause fade like morning dew, but love, faithfulness, and obedience endure beyond the grave. The people you impact, the souls you lead, the seeds you plant in faith, all these things cross the threshold of time and enter eternity's record. The smallest act done in obedience can outlast the greatest achievement done in self-will. Heaven doesn't measure success by how much we accumulate, but by how much we invest in what will never fade. Living with eternity in view doesn't mean ignoring the present. It means infusing the present with eternal purpose. It means seeing every conversation, every decision, and every moment as part of something much bigger. The way you spend your time on earth is practice for how you'll serve in eternity. Scripture tells us that one day we will reign with Christ, that our faithfulness here determines our responsibility there. This life is not the main event. It's the preparation. The wise live accordingly. They don't waste their days chasing comfort when they could be cultivating character. They don't measure success by applause, but by alignment. They understand that the only calendar that truly matters is God's eternal one. Every person you meet is an eternal being. Every act of compassion ripples through eternity. Every word of encouragement has the power to shift someone's destiny. When you begin to live with that awareness, you stop treating time as casual and start treating it as sacred. You begin to ask, will this matter in eternity? Before you spend another hour, before you speak another word, before you make another decision. That question becomes the filter that protects your life from meaningless pursuits. The things that once consumed your attention begin to lose their grip. You no longer live for applause, because eternity reveals that only God's approval lasts. The Apostle Paul wrote, "Our light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. What you endure now is temporary, but what it produces is eternal." The moments that feel wasted in waiting, in suffering, or in obscurity are not wasted at all. They are storing up glory. God uses time to prepare your soul for eternity. He refines you through seasons, molds you through delay, strengthens you through trials, and humbles you through waiting. The impatient see time as an obstacle. The wise see it as God's tool. When you live with eternity in your heart, even ordinary days become extraordinary. A simple prayer whispered in faith carries eternal significance. A kind word spoken to a weary heart becomes a seed that blooms in heaven's garden. A decision to forgive becomes a bridge between time and grace. Eternity gives meaning to every moment you live. So protect your time as though eternity depends on it, because, in a way, it does. Every day you live is one step closer to the moment you will see the face of the one who gave you that day. Every decision is a brushstroke on the canvas of your eternal story. Do not squander what heaven has entrusted to you. Live intentionally, love deeply, serve faithfully. When you live with eternity in mind, you don't just count the days, you make the days count. And when time finally gives way to eternity, you will hear the words that make every moment worthwhile. Well done, good and faithful servant.